Hello, question for you. Do you think your current profession was your choice? Or did it choose you when you had no say in the matter? Maybe it was a bit of both. But no matter how hard some people try, they just can't shake that genetic something they were born with, which pushes them to do something to scratch that itch on a regular basis. And if they're lucky enough, they can do it for a living. Anyways, today's story is about a knight. Or is it? Let's take a listen. The Kingdom of Tortoise. A rotund, almost mystical city hidden amongst an endless canopy of thick, labyrinthian jungle. Were it not for the many turrets and stark white outer walls keeping the flora at bay, one would never know they existed at all. But within those walls was a magnificent, bustling population of Torta, shy by nature, much like the city itself, but also very enthusiastic, loyal, and proud of their accomplishments, especially that of their knighthood training grounds and tutelage. Some of the best education one could hope for when learning the ways of chivalry, self-defense, and loyalty. Which is where our stout little friend comes into the picture. Having already acquired the rank of knight himself, Beignet comes from a long line of decorated servicemen. His father was a knight, his grandfather was a protector of the king, and his great-grandfather was known as the Slayer of the Great Lynx. And considering their long lifespan, for practically thousands of years his lineage has given themselves in the service of the kingdom. But there was a problem. Not only was Beignet not very good at this job, but those troubled times that often led to war and defense of the kingdom have become something of a mysterious past long forgotten during a very extended period of peace, leading to complacency for some people, even those charged with protecting. Be that as it may, Beignet would often find himself on patrol within the surrounding forest. Sometimes he was on burn duty with a few other squires or pages, making sure the jungle didn't overtake and damage the enceinte. Other times he was charged with standing outside the city gates for long hours on guard duty. But today was his favorite day. Today, he was sent into the jungle itself, checking for any encroaching enemies, brazen predators, or poachers and the like. Sure, he would do that. But once out of sight, he would rummage through his knapsack and assemble a small butterfly net that he hid amongst his provisions, then proceed on the hunt. Bug catching was not only fun, but it also offered him a chance to learn and, most of all, create. For a knight on paper, Beignet was really an artist at heart. He would place the insects in small jars, just long enough to sketch, jot down the sometimes iridescent color patterns, then let them go without harm. Later, when his work was done and in the privacy of his home, he would paint what he could remember and assume from his notes or sketches. Some were truly beautiful pieces. Others were quick ideas. But all were scattered about this small room like his very own chaotic museum of art and entomology. It wasn't the perfect life, but at least he could scratch that itch from time to time. Unfortunately, no matter how good Beignet was at hiding this passion, there was someone, or something, that was aware of his unpaid moonlighting. Or as they thought of it, mischief. For 2 weeks, this patrol was to be Beignet's post, and he was having the time of his life. Catching, cataloging, painting, it was bliss. albeit at the expense of what he should really be doing. But there hasn't been and never is any trouble, he thought. What's the harm? And so it was until the 5th day of his fortnight. Around dusk, Beignet was lost in focus, chasing down a gingham moth when the sound of forest life abruptly shut off all around him. It was eerie to say the least, and he knew what that could mean for his safety. So, stopping in his tracks, he slowly replaced the butterfly net for his spear, then listened closely as the deafening silence encased him. When no sound came close or returned, Beignet decided to investigate into the deeper part of the jungle. Every footstep crunching on the forest floor seemed to be some of the loudest things he had ever heard. But still nothing happened, and no other sounds of life returned. It wasn't until his surroundings started to change that he began to hear what sounded like the beating wind, an almost slow, methodical reverberation. Upon following this mystical noise, Beignet took note of mushrooms he had never seen before, and trees with vines unlike anything close to what he was used to climbing through. The world around him tinted with hues of violet and blue, or flashing bioluminescence. Small electric blue fireflies appeared in the distance, and a trickle of water could be heard that mingled with the slow upheaval of wind. The air became thicker, and the forest grew ever closer, and Beignet feared he may have become lost. Or worse, was somehow already dead, traversing into his afterlife. But still, he continued onward through this strange land. The methodical sound of moving wind was now deafening, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Beignet caught the sight of movement between the trees in front of him. Something big was encircling just ahead. He crept closer and peered around the edge of a trunk, then fell to his knees in awestruck surprise. A large, twilight-colored grove opened up with a canopy of shapeless, star-twinkling branches overhead. Beautiful, glittering leaves cascaded downwards, and a large, smooth stone stood smack in the middle. Bright, opalescent butterflies fluttered around the whimsical thicket, and upon identifying the movement from earlier, Beignet dropped his spear. A mammoth-sized white satin moth was floating in laps about the grove. Its eyes as black as the night sky, but with an air of endless space and time. The wings, though ivory in nature from above, underneath was almost indistinguishable. All at once they appeared to resemble the oceans, or a multicolored nebula, and then almost nothing at all, changing with each gigantic beat of its wings, along with the sound of rushing wind. And yet, there was no movement to be felt, no displacement of air whatsoever. It slowly descended to gently land on the stone in the center, and spoke.
There are two problems that you need to face this night. One of which concerns me, and both of which concern you. Do you know of what I speak?
Stumbling forward, Beignet looked at the ground.
I reckon you don't take too kindly to my buck catching. I swear I don't harm them none. I just want to honor their beauty with my paintings.
We are not elves. They are my children, and we do not like to be manhandled. Your passion is interfering with my children's livelihood, as well as your own. I will solve both dilemmas for us. Remember this.
Well, now, hang on a minute. Beignet tried to speak a rebuttal, but everything flashed white. Falling back on his shell, he turned his head and shielded his eyes in response. Thinking this was the end, and he truly had passed on to the land of the dead, Beignet laid there for a minute with his eyes closed. It wasn't until he heard the rushing of many feet that he opened his eyes and blinked away the blurriness. For standing over him with smiles and ponderous looks was a great assortment of some truly strange folk. A young goblin, a pair of gnomes, a bearded dwarf, some sort of feline person, a pair of pink chickens, and a very old-looking goblin offering him a tiny, weathered hand. That's right, people. Beignet had arrived at the Gathering Stone, along with all his paintings, sketchbooks, and the like. What a remarkable story he relayed. To come into contact with an ethereal deity and live to tell the tale. Don't worry, he can always find his way back home if he so desires. But something tells me he may stick around here for a little while and explore this new freedom. Anywho, be sure to come back next week for more stories, characters, and illustrations. Oh, and if you enjoyed this story, please feel free to let us know in the comments down below. Farewell for now.